a beautiful plate for our mother for Mother's Day. Hi friends, Mother's Day is coming up soon. For this year of 2020, it is May 10th. It always lands on the second Sunday of May every year. So I thought we'd make something special for our mothers. We're going to make blueberry scones from the America's Test Kitchen recipe, the cream scones. I will also show you how to make lemon curd. And then maybe at Mother's Day, you can make this for your mother and give her breakfast in bed. First thing is to preheat your oven to 425. This recipe calls for 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of fine sea salt or table salt. That's not kosher, that's your regular table salt that you use at your table with the very fine grains. 5 tablespoons chilled unsalted butter cut into 1/4 inch cubes. And you can put blueberries in there. It would be like 1/2 cup of blueberries or more. If you like more, put in more. And 1 cup of heavy cream. Now I like to adjust this recipe just a little bit. I like to put the zest of 1 lemon in. I just think that makes it taste extra good. Here's my first trick. When you're putting fresh berries in a baking product, if you notice once you've baked it and you just put it in the batter, more than likely your fruit will have sunk to the bottom of what you were baking. And well, who wants that, right? I have washed blueberries because I'm going to make this blueberries, and now I'm just going to toss them in just a little bit of flour. This coats the blueberry so it doesn't sink to the bottom, and you get a more even disbursement throughout your batter. So we'll set that aside once it's really covered. And we're going to move on to our batter. I always strain my flour, my sugar, whatever it is I'm using as far as the dry ingredients, because you will find there will be a little bit of chunks, little chunky stuff that you don't want in your finished product. Okay, so it says we have 2 cups of flour. We want 1 tablespoon of baking powder, not soda, baking powder. 3 tablespoons of sugar, just regular white sugar. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, fine salt. And that is our dry ingredients. Okay, I'm going to sift all this together. This also helps to mix it better. Now I got lucky. There wasn't much in there. I don't think I can even, maybe a little tiny piece of chunk in there. That's pretty good. Okay, just mix that up with your rubber spatula. Get it all incorporated well. The reason why we mix our dry ingredients together first and then incorporate our wet is so that we can make sure that we get the salt and the sugar and the baking powder mixed really well in with our flour. You wouldn't want a clump of baking powder over here and nothing over here. It wouldn't give you a good consistent product. Now I like to take my lemon zest and you just roughly go over your lemon. Don't go till you get down to absolute white. Once you get to where it starts to look white, stop there and move it, because the white underneath can be quite bitter and we don't want that. We just want the flavor of the lemon. So I'm just working all over. You could save this lemon for something else. We'll just use the juice some other time. If you're not going to use it right away, you need to put the lemon in a baggie and store it in your refrigerator, because it will dry out and then you can't get the juice out of it. So now we need to add our butter, and you want this butter to be cold, so you can cut it into chunks and then put it back in your refrigerator. Make sure it's really cold and you'll see why. The reason why you want the butter to be a little bit chunky in the oven as your dough bakes, the heat will cause the butter to melt and it creates a steam pocket in there, and that's what gives you flaky buttery layers. This is called a pastry blender. You can do this in your food processor where you would pulse it for about 10 pulses, about a second at a time, 10 seconds. But we're just going to use our old-fashioned pastry blender, something your grandmothers had because they certainly didn't have food processors back in the day. Oh, now you just want to kind of just work the butter into the flour mixture. And you're cutting through those chunks. There's a reason why you wouldn't leave wouldn't put a whole stick of butter in here. It'd be pretty hard to work through evenly throughout. See, it even gets caught up in those little ridges. Just take it off with your spatula, rubber spatula that is, and continue to work it. And this can take a little bit of time. But you're just basically cutting the butter into small little pieces, incorporating it into your flour mixture. Now our goal is to not totally obliterate the butter. You want little chunks of butter. Little chunks, not big chunks. These are still a little too big. So you just be patient and you keep working it. You can also do this with your fingertips, but it causes the butter to melt quicker, so you can do that. Just kind of press it through your fingertips. But that also warms up the butter, so I like to use this if I'm not using my food processor. Always make sure you have clean hands, because why? They are the cook's best tools. And feeling is a part of cooking. Sometimes you just gotta feel it. Say, does it feel right? Does it feel like there's just little chunks in there, not big chunks? So you know what a pea looks like, right? A frozen pea. Chunks should be about that size. Some are gonna be smaller, some, you know, are gonna be really small, but you don't want it necessarily bigger than the size of a pea. We have worked all this into our dough. Next, we're gonna put in our blueberries. Okay. There. We've got a cream that we need to add, so we pour that in. Scones are really a biscuit. If you ever heard of the term scones with your tea, it's very popular over in England. Really, they're just a fancy term for a nice sweet biscuit. Then gently mix your cream into your flour mixture. You don't have to overwork it too much. With biscuits, you don't want to overwork the flour. You do not want to create a lot of gluten, which can make your scones a little tough to eat, and nobody wants that. You want light, flaky, buttery scones. Now we can just put this out on our work surface here. Oh, be careful. And by the way, butter yourself up a cookie sheet because you're going to need it. And you're also going to need an 8-inch cake pan. And a bench scraper. This is awesome. They're used to clean the bench, they're used to cut with. It's a multi-purpose tool. You can get this at the dollar store. So once we've poured this out onto our work surface, we're just gonna try and just gently work it just a little bit, not too much. You know, maybe a turn. We're just trying to gather all the dry bits together. Not overworking it. I'm just kind of gently patting it down. Just patting it down, not squishing too hard because you have the blueberries in there. You don't want them to get squished. We don't want to smash the blueberries. Once I figure I've got it in a nice ball, you can see the dry bits a little bit in there. That's okay. I'm just going to press it down. All right, we're going to take our 8-inch cake pan. Just put your dough in there. And you will have a little bit of flour left over. That's okay. No problem. You don't need it. Just push it to the side. We're going to clean that up with our bench scraper after we're done. So, pat your scones, your scone dough, into your 8-inch pan. Now, depending on whether your mother likes tea or coffee, that's what you can serve with it. You can either serve her a nice hot cup of tea or a nice hot cup of coffee with a lemon curd. Check my next video to find out. It will be under the title of Mother's Day Special. Okay, I've got that pat into place. Set that aside. I'd like to clean up my work surface. You can see I have all this stuff here. This is great. You just use your bench scraper and use it to shove all the way to the edge of your table. You can't really see this part, but I have a bowl at the edge of the table, halfway under the table. So when I push the flour to the edge of the table, it will fall into my bowl. Look how clean your surface is. All right. This is the trick. Let's see if we can get it out. I popped it over pretty hard. Came right out. It is now on the cookie sheet. And here's where the bench scraper comes in to play. Again, this is great to cut with. We want to make 8 wedges. So we're going to cut down the center. It cuts right through because it's so soft. And then we need to cut down the center here. Cut this wedge in half, this wedge in half, this wedge in half, and this wedge in half. So now we have 8 wedges. I'm going to separate them so they all cook evenly. You can use a spatula if you want, not your rubber spatula, a regular spatula, or you can use this, and I'm just separating it a little bit so it'll cook evenly. Now if your dough has gotten too warm, put this back in the refrigerator and let it get cold again, maybe 15-20 minutes. In fact, I highly recommend that, especially working under these hot studio lights. It wants to melt everything. We want the butter to stay cold until we put it into the oven. We want that steam effect with the butter. So I recommend putting this back in your refrigerator 15 to 20 minutes. And then when you're done, put it into the oven at 425, and they will bake between 12 to 15 minutes. Check them at the 12-minute mark. If they don't look done, put them back in for up to a total of 15 minutes baking time. That would mean you'd put them back in for up to another 3 minutes. You will tell when they're done, when they are golden brown, and you can smell them. It smells like baked deliciousness. All right, I'm going to put them in the oven, and I'll show you the finished product when we come back.